Hello and welcome to another episode of the Student Garden Thought Leaders series. Today I'm joined by Emily Primavera. Emily, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Super excited to chat to you today. Obviously, you're the head of digital here at the University of Adelaide. Very timely, given this university is going through some pretty big changes, and I'm really interested to kind of dive into that and talk a little bit about how that's all playing out. And I know you're playing a role kind of in that transformation as well. But before we get to that, looking up and kind of having a bit of a look at your background, I can see you've had a really diverse kind of, career in terms of the roles you've worked. You've worked in banking and tourism, and obviously now you're in the education space. Perhaps if you could kind of give us a little bit of an insight into your background and kind of the roles and the type of work that you've done, and tell us a little bit about kind of the work that you're doing here at the University of Adelaide.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting because when I reflect on it, I found myself in some complex journeys and complex like customer environments and audience journeys, which has been amazing, but tourism was super fun. I think where it started, I had such a great experience working at the Ehrenberg-Bass Institute of Marketing Science, and I loved that, getting into the data, getting into the customer behavior, seeing that side of it, and also getting across those skills was so valuable. And then seeing how valuable the brand plays in that too, which was really cool. I think that, took me to banking, which was really interesting. And I think we were sort of chatting about as well, like being at the forefront of that when you started to actually use social media to do marketing, and how scandalous it was for someone to think that you could advertise a home loan on social media, and look where we are now. And starting into a place where we're then working with influencers to start with. Like, it's been a really interesting career over that period.
Now we've got like full neo banks and digital banks.
Exactly. So as digital evolved and looking at how we use that through banking was really interesting. And then sort of working into the tourism space, which was, a bit of a dream gig to be able to go and be in the Barossa on a Tuesday drinking wine, but talking with businesses about how they can improve their digital presence and how they can attract more travellers to their destination as Adelaide, South Australia, which I'm so passionate about. And that then brought me overseas to actually share and look at how we do that with Tourism Australia as well. But then into the uni, which has been great to again continue that passion for absolutely data, customer-driven marketing, but also with that passion for South Australia and Adelaide, which has built me to look at building a really great digital marketing centre of excellence here at the University of Adelaide, and then moving into working closely on how we actually merge and bring University of South Australia, University of Adelaide together on Adelaide University. So it's been
cool.
Really exciting.
And what are some of the things, like when you reflect back on that, and I often think about in the context, of like international student recruitment, where it's like, it starts with the destination. Often it starts with the destination and then kind of funnels into the university, and then obviously the products, the degrees, and postgraduate studies and stuff. So, what are some of the things that you've kind of been able to, I guess, bring across to kind of the education world from those previous experiences?
That's been massive, and one of the things that I can see is such an opportunity for us in Adelaide, in South Australia in particular. Education is South Australia's biggest export, so it's massive. It's massive for us, and Adelaide can be that destination for education. We're a really small, accessible city, but have a lot going on and a lot that we can offer. So it's been really good to look at and seeing how an international traveller might consider a destination like Australia is a high complex, costly journey. Similar-ish, and you can draw parallels to how we need to encourage an international student to consider to come to Australia and then to consider South Australia. And looking at how we then bring some of that content and some of that inspirational and exciting content that helps someone sort of get excited about coming to move to a new country, move to Adelaide, bringing that into our journey and being able to share that on our website at U of A, being able to actually sort of inject that into our marketing and activity in international markets has been really, really interesting and new. I think what we've done previously is very focused on product, but obviously we then look at how can we invest in our media and our advertising, but also in our digital experience and showcasing Adelaide, the destination, South Australia, and injecting that into our digital experience, our email, etc. through the journey, not just at the front, at the middle when we're trying to convert someone, but right through to keep that inspiration going, because we know that's how we can continue to encourage someone to make a decision and actually convert with us.
Totally. And I know like you guys have got a very sophisticated kind of setup when you look at, you know, like this university relative to a lot of others in the market. You guys are certainly at the forefront of kind of leveraging data and delivering personalization on the website and other channels as well. Can you talk to us a little bit about kind of that journey and some of the successes, some of the things you've kind of overcome, and just a little bit about kind of getting to where you are today? And I'm sure you have grand plans to kind of go much further than you are today, but if you could give us some insights into kind of what that journey's looked like and how you've kind of gone about developing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something I've been really passionate about from tourism and from what we did at SA Tourism, because we were able to move really quickly, get into MarTech, digital experience technology really quickly, and look at using personalization, experimentation, trying to start to scale that, working through advertising right through digital experience, email, etc., and doing sort of actually omnichannel experiences with our audiences and being able to show improvements in engagement and conversion like massively. And so I really wanted to look at how we bring that into U of A and the University of Adelaide when I started. So created, and the role that I came on was a new team, new structure, and being able to have that opportunity to build a team that is a digital marketing center of excellence, has specialized roles that are really deep and experienced in all of our digital experience technology platforms. So we've got an audience specialist, for example, and an analytics specialist and key roles like that. So trying to work with and build the team to then look at, if we use insights from our audiences and we build our audience framework, we look at our data and our insights and we really bolster that, understand that across the full journey. Then how we roll out experimentation, set up a framework for that and actually scale that out has been really, really exciting and really massive. And you can see the interest, particularly in education, from the teams and the leaders in looking at, well, we only think about research, like what's experimentation? We're seeing results and we're seeing data here. Like that's really interesting. Like tell us more. So being able to start to show those quick wins, test and learn, and sort of bring that culture into the university has been really exciting. We've been able to make changes on our digital platforms and through optimizing some of our media right through to our platforms to show increases in conversion, increases in engagement on site, and then ultimately look at how that affects our admissions, how it affects our conversions downstream too, by looking at our data and analyzing that really strongly as well.
Obviously, you know, the VC and the team kind of who are leading the university obviously are really passionate about digital, because otherwise you wouldn't have kind of made the types of investments and sort of taken the types of risks you're talking about. So I'm assuming that's fairly embedded in the culture, and you talk about experimentation, and do they play a pretty key role in developing the strategy and working with you guys to bring this stuff to life, and obviously to endorse it and provide more funding? You talk about kind of getting results. Is that sort of a big part of this, that kind of leading from the front in terms of you know, the industry? Does that come from that sort of?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're really supportive and really across it, because you know, we're able to share and show the value and show what we're doing and how we can use it. So a couple of things we've done is really try to get a lot of the teams in recruitment, future students, lots of different areas across our audience framework that we've built in digital, but it's an audience framework for the whole university. It's for all of our stakeholders to understand how we can see our audiences and then how we can actually look at building them, using them and activating on them to help support all of our experiences that we're delivering in our external engagement area. And so getting that across and sort of seeing how much leaders can buy into that has been so valuable, because they can take that away to their areas, work on it, and then look at how that rolls up into one broader picture that also connects in with the student experience. So especially at Adelaide University, we have the aspiration to be in the top 5 for student experience. And so with that, we know that our students are expecting a digital experience and they're expecting personalization at scale and they're expecting all of that. So it's been great to have that support to look at how do we build that into the University of Adelaide, but also increasingly into Adelaide University. And we've seen that in how we've built out one of, and I think the most integrated digital experience platform set up in Australia for any university, because of how we've gotten all of our tools working together. We've been able to tap into the right data sources and starting from an audience approach. And so that's been really cool to have that backing and to see where we can take that in the future as well.
Cool. You mentioned having a full omni-channel experience, and obviously when we think about, you know, in particular kind of the Gen Z crew is they're across a whole bunch of different platforms, whether it's social, email, SMS. From an investment in terms of energy and time for you guys, what channels are you guys like really leaning into? Like I noticed looking at your social content, I think you guys do an amazing job kind of telling stories from an organic social point of view. Like where's kind of the ball moving to, and where are you guys focused on in terms of like your channel mix?
Yeah, I'm going to flip that a little bit because I think the thing that we're focusing on is looking at deep in the audience, looking at where they are and what they need, and trying to map and understand then what are all the channels that will be working for us, and how do we map those omni-channel experiences. So we actually have something called omni-channel experience mapping that we do internally to look at how we can also test and tweak. So we have contingency and test budgets with our media agencies. We have a view of experimentation and personalization, like I talked about in digital. And so then we work together on those things to look at how do we actually plan out and map out how we might test or reset something up or change it, understand what the audience might want, and actually look at how that's performing and go back and test and learn and try different things. So we set it up and we look at media, but we also look at, again, we talked about education, such a complex journey. How do we trigger and influence that journey through email, through digital experience, through serving different content on site and things like that as well. So,
and is that like when you talk about the managing audience and you mentioned, you're someone who's dedicated, can you tell us a little about your software stack and kind of how you guys actually approach this stuff? Because I think it's really helpful for people listening in. I think there's always a lot of conversation around kind of getting to this great end state of having a fully personalized omni-channel experience. But maybe you could tell us a little bit about kind of your software stack and kind of, I guess, the journey you've gone on to get to where you are today.
Yeah, definitely. And it comes with setting that up internally in the culture. So building it outside of the tech and actually thinking, how do we have an audience framework? How do we have an experimentation framework? What's our data strategy and our metrics look like and our metric hierarchy? Having that outside of the tech to then look at how you build it in the tech and help the culture of the team sort of work in that has been really valuable. And it helps us sort of be more agile and move to when we've needed to transition from a DMP, a data management platform, to a CDP, and then continue to look at, well, what are our first, second and third party data strategies and what does that mean? How do we activate them? How do we set them up in our CDP? But also how do we use our site, use our media, et cetera, to generate more leads so that we can understand then capturing that first party data to then look at, the value that we can provide to a prospective student. And then how do we bring that in and then activate our tech off the back of that? But always looking at our data and sort of reviewing that constantly in our analytics platforms, et cetera, as well.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the merger, because obviously we've got two Adelaide universities coming together. Because to me, when I hear that and I think about technology, I think that sounds like a nightmare. You're obviously kind of in the absolute thick of it. Can you tell us a little bit about how are you guys going about kind of taking that, and when did you start that journey as well in terms of thinking about, hey, how are we actually going to kind of pull this off? Because I imagine a fair amount of planning would have gone into it.
Yeah, and it's been going for over a year and even longer before that, absolutely. And it's been something that's been really exciting, but also really, really challenging, but so great to be all in together building a brand whilst we're also building a digital experience, whilst we're also building out what our curriculum will be. So we're building the product, the brand, the experience all at the same time, which is a massive challenge, but such an exciting project to work on and to work across lots of different businesses in our partners, but also with UniSA, with U of A colleagues together to build one new university. There's a lot that's been happening in the tech space, but also, having to make sure that, we're building a website whilst we're also building a brand. How do we actually get to a point where we can actually apply the brand to the website? We did it really quickly. It was probably a matter of weeks. And so rolling that out, you can imagine how long it takes to build a website, how long it takes to build a brand. Well, in the education space, even more so, because compliance and, stakeholders and Yes, exactly. So a lot of research, a lot of data, a lot of insights that we all have and we all sort of feed into all of these spaces when we're building. But then, taking it to really making sure that we all are really comfortable, we're happy with it, and that we're setting the right foundations. So what we're doing with Adelaide University is setting the right foundations for what's to come and what we continue to grow in the business in the university. And setting, particularly in the digital experience, setting the right foundations to capture the audience, the data, understand that, and then look at how we test and learn off the back of that too.
And how was it culturally? How's it been in terms of, obviously, I imagine we've done a bit of M&A over the years, but much smaller in terms of, teams of 5 or 6 people, we're talking about hundreds. So how do you guys approach it culturally, kind of within your remit? How are you guys thinking about, you know, trying to get alignment and, you know, ensuring everyone's kind of on the same page and working towards the same goal?
Yeah, absolutely. We're always focused on Adelaide University. So building something new and then looking at how we be really competitive whilst also needing to be compliant and making sure that we really are always focusing on that. Looking at industry best practice, looking at industry first, looking at how we can think about the customer experience. So again, we created an audience framework for Adelaide University, and it was something that we then made sure that lots of parts of the business could be across, so that it helps decompartmentalize it, socialize it, and make sure that we're not then just talking about UniSA and University of Adelaide, but we're talking about our audiences and our customers, because they're not going to change.
Totally.
And they're going to be the same. And we have to be the best we can be for them. So how do we do that for Adelaide University? And having that central point has been the best, like the most amazing thing we could do to then make sure, again, we're focused on the customer, we're focused on the customer experience, and we're focused on building the right data inputs that help us get there.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to have the opportunity to kind of have a clean slate, but be able to lean into all the amazing stories. You know, it's such a rich history across both universities. So to be able to leverage that, but then also to be able to kind of create a new identity is pretty cool. You know, there's 40 universities in Australia. To be able to kind of start afresh with one is a pretty cool experience. And maybe a good kind of segue into kind of the next question to kind of change it up a little bit. You know, you talk tourism and some of the roles you've had, and now this is an amazing opportunity. If kind of, you know, resource wasn't a barrier, let's say, what's like, you know, a dream project, dream kind of campaign sort of look like for you, knowing you've already had some pretty enriched and amazing experiences? What do you think would be like a real dream experience opportunity for you?
Yeah, what we're doing now is amazing. I think being able to work in a place or have a project that we could be really, really agile in a team where we've got marketing, digital, conversion teams and customer teams. So building like a CX type project that helps really roll that out really intensely. And I think showcasing the results from media from that initial consumer touch point right through to conversion would be amazing. Having like a massive like digital data dashboard that everyone's looking at constantly. We're tracking media constantly. We're tracking the dashboard. We're tracking social and Google engagements, etc. And then we're looking at the emails we're sending, and we're testing and learning constantly. I think setting up, and we do a little bit of that now. I think testing.
You're on that path.
Yeah, we're on the path. But like doing it at full scale with, I think, massive teams with depth in those areas to do that test and learn, and, you know, to have everyone doing like testing, experimentation constantly would be amazing. Yeah,
and I think like the opportunities now that kind of, I guess for you guys, given you're structuring your data in a way that's sophisticated, your ability to leverage AI technology to be able to start to predict the future and kind of leverage those, you're just going to be so well positioned to actually get a better sense of predicting the future in terms of, you know, how are these experiments going to play out at scale, forecasting numbers, looking like, you know, and all that stuff is really exciting. I think, you know, from our perspective, you know, at Student Garden, definitely, you know, we're deeply rooted in like sales and like the end outcome, and we know we're not really like, brand plays such obviously a critical role in kind of getting to the end result, but I'd say our kind of background is more in direct response style advertising. So it's similar for us where, you know, kind of having that holistic view and understanding what your cost per sale is by channel, by audience, you know, and kind of better understanding what levers you can kind of pull to ultimately generate a better return for the business out the other end is really what motivates us. And it's often very hard to actually get to a place where you can really accurately tell what your cost per sale is by channel, and because there's so many factors in structuring the data in a way. So I think, you know, that's pretty cool. I think, you know, for myself, when I think about the question and I think about your background, I mean, I watched a great video. I'm from New Zealand, for probably 99% of the people listening have picked up on that. But I watched this amazing video the other day of Mr. Beast going to this the YouTuber going to this very like secluded location in New Zealand, creating this like amazing video. He's like trying to get to this really remote cave and like this, and the middle of the earth or something. And I was like, man, it would be pretty cool to be creating content like that in the context of, you've done it for Adelaide.
Yeah.
I think about it in the context of New Zealand, just like going heli skiing and going and so, I mean, I don't know if I'd go as extreme as Mr. Beast and go into like a cave for 4 days, but I think, the opportunity to do that sort of stuff
amazing.
Would be pretty cool.
And show the success of it and show how
exactly.
it actually returns value. It would be amazing.
Yeah.
And that's like connecting that brand promise to the customer promise and showing result, but showing that the brand and the experience contributed to it massively.
Yeah. You've mentioned kind of experimentation. We've spoken a bit about channels. Can you give us some more like practical examples of some of the experiments you're running and kind of how you're using data and insights to improve the customer experience or the customer journey kind of for your prospective students?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did a big project where we actually looked at mapping all of our key touch points on the website to our application data. So we could understand when someone was clicking on certain buttons or visiting certain pages, how that correlated with them actually submitting an application. So we ran lots of different data sets together, combined them, and then we pulled something out and we had a metric hierarchy. So we could then map that into and use it in our MarTech, in our advertising technology, to set weighted objectives. So weighted objectives based on our metrics hierarchy that we know work based on application. So we could do that, but then also make sure that then the experiments that we were running, so for example, running things like some key international markets that we also had media in, making sure we're doing things like reducing the size of the page or the length of the page, increasing that Life in Adelaide content or that inspirational content, and showing them that actually contributed to increasing our engagement on clicking through to apply type metrics or clicking through to contact us or frequently asked questions, etc., which we had worked out then correlated with applications down the line. So whilst we knew and we couldn't track exact applications, we could, because obviously lots of international students are applying through an agent, we could track that we were triggering what would get them close to that, and we could be buying and optimizing media for that, and then actually setting up our experiments and optimizing our on-site activity with that as well, with those audiences from our DMP or CDP. So that's been really, really cool because it started with data. It started with setting up that metric hierarchy and then looking at how we actually used it across our platforms. And our experimentation that we run is very data and insight based, and we have that results register. So we keep that running. We look at it. We have a backlog. We have ideation that we do with the teams. We've looked at how we improve our degree or study pages quite a lot, and also how we then work with our conversion team to improve the offer to enroll experience. So our how to apply pages, we looked at actually doing some user testing on that, and then did some experimentation on removing and adjusting lots of key parts to that page. And then we could see an increase in the engagement on that page, but also the contact that they made with our conversion team. So that was really cool as well, to see that real impact.
That's great insight. You talk about the international markets, and in terms of the stakeholder engagement, obviously, what's relevant to someone in India can be very different to what's relevant to someone in the US. Like, how do you work with stakeholders across the kind of international landscape, and how do you kind of collaborate with them to ensure the messaging and the content that you're producing is relevant to kind of those audiences? Yeah,
we work with them really closely. So we work with our international recruitment teams and international marketing. And again, we work on compiling all of that international audience insight into one place, so into our audience framework. But we've also done research as well as user testing and actually talking to students on campus as well to get all of that insight too. Compiling that all together and then making sure we can sort of feed it into some of our experimentation ideas. We've done personalization with Vietnamese content because we know that actually influencers in particular want to see content that's written in language. So we made sure that then our media and our on-site experience was in language, and we could see that sort of did improve the experience that someone had on site as well. So it's harder to track sometimes, but it's always really worth doing because you're still testing and learning, and you're connecting into that customer insight or that audience insight that a recruiter has, given that feedback, or we've talked to an agent or a student or a prospective student. And so making sure we're collating all of that and actually drawing the insights out, and again putting that back into our omnichannel experience mapping and our experimentation.
And is that all delivered kind of via your main website? Because again, it sounds like you guys have really invested in trying to centralize everything and get it so all the things you're talking about earlier around data and how you use it can be applied to everything, not just like the domestic market here.
Yeah, definitely. And so a lot of it is centralized on the website. We know that's a source, and we've done research to understand where the website sits in that journey for our customers and our audience. But also knowing that, making sure that that content insight that we have is something that our social teams also have, or our media teams have, to make sure that that's also in the ad creative, or it's just in our organic social and our TikToks, etc., LinkedIn, things like that, to make sure that it reflects the same experience, and that when they're coming back to the site, they're looking for that key info, but they're also seeing a reflective and similar experience, a similar journey and messaging. So being able to show that as well, but give them that really detailed info, and then lead them into email or touching base with us and actually contacting us to convert.
Yeah, cool. I'm going to get my crystal ball out. There's obviously a ton of stuff happening, across the digital space. And again, you've spoken to some of those trends and how you're kind of leveraging technology. When you look into the future within kind of the University of Adelaide, where do you see those opportunities to kind of leverage technology or strategies to kind of deliver a better experience or improve the marketing of the university?
Yeah, it was funny when I started at the university, I used the word customer experience and customer, and very quickly was sort of said, we don't use the word customer in education, we don't use that word. And I think I've seen that grow and change so much since the time that I've been here, but also in the industry. And it's really clear that we're getting to a point where marketing, customer experience is very similar, but how do we bring that digital experience element, but also the physical element, and particularly in education, and how do we actually drive customer experience in a real tangible way where we can see, and again, tap into the audience and the data and look at how we're actually using it and activating it constantly, moving away from campaigns and moving into a culture where we're driving customer experience, and we're actually being able to finally, hopefully, get to the point we can actually do experimentation and personalization at scale. And everyone is across that, everyone's contributing, and we're all driving that as a success rather than just in sort of campaign mode, but actually delivering customer experience and delivering the brand promise through the customer experience as well.
Yeah, it feels like it's kind of more about how are we going to leverage technology to support the strategy rather than it being about technology. Then, so absolutely. I think that's, you talk about culture and you talk about experimentation. It sounds like, you guys are doing some really amazing work and just trying to push the boundaries, because I think a lot of the time, we're speaking with universities or other businesses within the education ecosystem, there's a lot of barriers around kind of doing this stuff, and like usually that barrier is associated with technology. But what's been really clear in this conversation is it kind of starts with the strategy and the process, and the technology comes after that. And I think often that kind of gets lost a little bit within this industry.
Yeah, and how do we work with our partners and invest time and energy into actually looking at what are we setting up, how are we using our tech, what do we want to do with it, and how do we actually innovate with it? Like it's all there, it can do so much. How do we use it to our advantage and work with our partners to actually find those challenges or those problems we can solve for the customer and actually activate them in the tech?
Cool. Well, thank you so much for today, Emily. It's been wonderful, learning about what you're up to in your role and kind of getting some fascinating insights into how you guys approach, digital and marketing and connecting with, your customers. If people want to reach out and connect with you, is LinkedIn kind of the best place to connect with you?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.